The caller ID showed a blocked number, but the voice on the other end was sickeningly familiar, a panicked young man claiming to be Gene Ebert's grandson. He spun a convincing tale of a DUI arrest and desperate need for cash, unaware that he'd just dialed the wrong grandma. The phone rang, a shrill, insistent sound that sliced through the quiet hum of Gene Ebert's afternoon. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Her hands, still lightly coated with flour from the apple pie she'd been preparing, hovered over the receiver. She hesitated. Unfamiliar numbers always gave her a flicker of unease. "Hello," she finally answered, her voice calm but guarded. "Grandma? Grandma, is that you?" The voice on the other end was male, young, and laced with a tremor of panic. "It's me. It's Michael." Jean frowned. Michael? She didn't have a grandson named Michael. Her only grandchild, Sarah, was barely 10 years old, still happily obsessed with unicorns and glitter. A knot of suspicion tightened in her stomach. "Michael who?" she asked, her voice taking on a sharper edge. "Grandma, it's me, your grandson. I'm in trouble. Big trouble." The voice cracked. I got into an accident. I had a few drinks and I hit another car. I'm at the police station." The knot in Jean's stomach twisted. This was a classic grandparent scam. She knew it instantly. It wasn't just the wrong name. It was the frantic tone, the vague details, the immediate plea for help. It was a script, a well-rehearsed performance designed to exploit the love and concern of elderly relatives. A wave of memories washed over her, sharp and sudden. The harsh fluorescent lights of a 911 dispatch center, the constant, urgent chatter radios, the smell of stale coffee that always hung in the air. She could almost feel the pressure of the headset against her ear, the weight of responsibility that came with being the lifeline for people in crisis. She saw herself, younger, her hair pulled back in a tight bun, her eyes focused on the blinking lights on the console. A call had come in, an elderly woman, her voice trembling, reporting a similar scam. A man claiming to be her son, needing money for bail after a supposed car accident. Jean had calmly guided the woman, instructing her to ask specific questions, to listen for inconsistencies, to stall for time while they traced the call. They'd caught the scammer that time, a small victory in the endless battle against those who preyed on the vulnerable. That memory solidified her resolve. She wouldn't be a victim. She would use her training, her experience, to turn the tables on this boy. He thought he was talking to a helpless old woman. He was wrong. "Michael," she said, her voice now steady, almost soothing. "Tell me exactly what happened. Where are you?" She kept her tone even, injecting just enough concern to sound believable. But beneath the surface, her mind was racing, analyzing every word, every inflection. This wasn't just about protecting herself. It was about stopping him, about preventing him from hurting someone else. The calls went back and forth, a twisted dance of deception. The young man, sticking to his fabricated story, passed Jean to someone claiming to be his lawyer. This lawyer, a voice dripping with false urgency, explained the situation in more detail, carefully crafting a narrative designed to pull at Jean's heartstrings. "Your grandson is very upset," Mrs. Ebert, the lawyer said, his voice a practiced blend of concern and authority. "He's never been in trouble before. He made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but he's a good kid. We can get him out of this, but we need to act quickly. The bail is set at $8,000. If we can get that to the court today, he can go home tonight." Jean played her part perfectly, the worried grandmother, her voice trembling slightly. $8,000? Oh dear, that's a lot of money. I don't know if I have that much in a bank. She let a hint of panic creep into her voice, a subtle cue to encourage the scammer, to make him believe he had her hooked. "Mrs. Ebert, I understand this is difficult, but time is of the essence. The longer he stays in jail, the more complicated this becomes. Do you have any cash in the house? Anything you can gather quickly?" The lawyer's voice was becoming more insistent, sensing a potential payday. Internally, Jean was seething. The audacity of these people. But she maintained her composure, her years of training kicking in. Let me "Let me see what I can do," she said, her voice wavering. "I might have some money put away for a rainy day. Can you hold on for a moment?" She put the phone down, but instead of scrambling for cash, she picked up her other phone, her landline, the one with the caller ID that the scammer wouldn't be able to block. Her fingers, surprisingly steady, dialed 911. "This is Gene Ebert at 14 Oak Street," she said, her voice crisp and professional, a stark contrast to the worried grandmother she'd been portraying. "I'm currently on the phone with someone attempting a grandparent scam. I'm playing along. He's requesting $8,000 in bail money. I need officers here immediately. I'm going to arrange for him to come to my house to collect the money." The dispatcher, recognizing the urgency and clarity in Jean's voice, assured her that officers were on their way. Jean took a deep breath, her heart pounding, a mixture of fear and adrenaline coursing through her veins. She was ready. Back on the call, Jean informed the lawyer that she had the money. Her hands were occupied gathering not cash, but a stack of paper towels. With practiced precision, she folded them neatly, placing them inside a plain white envelope. She even slipped a few genuine $1 bills on top, a final touch of realism to fool the unsuspecting scammer. The wait was agonizing. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside the window, sent a jolt of adrenaline through her. She peered through the curtains, her eyes scanning the street. The quiet suburban neighborhood seemed deceptively peaceful, hiding the tension that crackled in the air. Finally, a car pulled up to the curb. A young man, barely more than a teenager, emerged. He was skinny, with a mop of unruly brown hair and eyes that darted nervously around. He wore a faded t-shirt and jeans, looking more like a college student than a hardened criminal. This only fueled Jean's anger. He was a kid, preying on the elderly, stealing their hard-earned savings. He approached the porch, his steps hesitant. Jean opened the door, forcing a weak smile. Are you the lawyer?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly, playing the role of the vulnerable grandmother one last time. "Yes, ma'am," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. He avoided her gaze, his eyes fixed on the envelope in her hand. "I'm here to collect the bail money for Michael." Jean held out the envelope. "Here you go," she said, her voice barely audible. Please tell Michael I love him, and I'll be there to pick him up as soon as I can." The young man reached for the envelope, a flicker of relief, or perhaps triumph, crossing his face. He took it, his fingers brushing against Jean's. And then chaos. Officers, who had been hidden in unmarked cars and behind bushes, swarmed the porch, shouting commands. "Police! Don't move!" The young man froze, his eyes wide with terror. The envelope slipped from his grasp, tumbling to the porch floor, scattering the carefully folded paper towels. The few dollar bills fluttered in the breeze, a pathetic symbol of his failed scheme. He looked utterly bewildered, a deer caught in the headlights. Jean stood tall, her initial fear replaced by a surge of righteous anger and a profound sense of satisfaction. She watched as the officers handcuffed the young man, reading him his rights. He didn't resist, his shoulders slumping in defeat. The silence that followed the arrest was profound, broken only by the chirping of birds and the distant hum of traffic. Jean stood on her porch, watching as the police car drove away. The young man, Joshua Estrella Gomez, 28, of Mineola, she later learned, slumped in the back seat. A wave of exhaustion washed over her, but beneath it, a deep sense of relief. She'd done it. She'd outsmarted a criminal, protected herself, and potentially saved others from falling victim to the same scam. But the anger lingered. The audacity of these criminals, preying on the elderly, exploiting their fears and their love for their families, was infuriating. Later, sitting at her kitchen table, sipping a cup of tea, she reflected on the events of the day. The local news had picked up the story, and a reporter had interviewed her. She made sure to emphasize the warning signs, the red flags that people should look out for. "These scams are becoming more and more sophisticated," she said to the reporter, her voice firm and clear. "They use fear and urgency to pressure people into making rash decisions. They prey on our emotions, our desire to help our loved ones. but we can fight back. We can educate ourselves, be skeptical, and never, ever send money without verifying the information. She paused, her gaze meeting the camera lens directly. Don't let these people get away with it, she said, her voice ringing with conviction. Be aware, be alert, and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Call the police. Don't be embarrassed. You're not alone. As the sun set, casting long shadows across her living room, Jean felt a sense of peace. She'd faced a threat and emerged victorious. She'd used her past experience, her quick thinking, and her courage to make a difference. It was a small victory, perhaps, but a significant one. She knew the fight against these scams was far from over, but she was ready to do her part, to be a voice for the vulnerable, a reminder that even in the face of deception, resilience and courage could prevail. The quiet hum of her home returned, this time filled not with the jarring ring of a scammer's call, but with the quiet satisfaction of a battle won.